yoga today in a slightly different way. We're going to do it in the yin style. So yin style, we are in position for 3 to 5 minutes for each pose. You don't do as many poses. You can have as much support as you like. You can roll up blankets, cushions, and everything. But what I wanted to show you is how reflex yoga and yin yoga work really well together. Because when I used to do yin yoga, I used to get really bored after about a minute of just following my breath. And I was like, okay, I followed my breath, okay, now what?
Get up.
What you've got is the opportunity to bring in some of the yoga techniques, that reflex yoga techniques that you already know without having to move a muscle, because they work equally well through the mirror neuron network. Okay, so I'll explain myself as we do it. So let's come out, let's bring ourselves into, we're going to do a forward bend first. And we want to be sort of relatively comfortable in our forward bend. So bearing the fact that we're not at a yin yoga studio, you can wrap your arms underneath and use them as a bit of a bolster to lean against. We've got the head tucked in. And, we want to make sure that we start with, a good stretch that we can feel all the way from our heels and up to the back of the neck. So the whole of the back of the body is stretching. And then we can tune into our breathing. Feel the breath. Feel how the breath is affecting our stretch. How does it feel different from when you're breathing in to when you're breathing out? And then we can start to sort of think into some of the reflex stuff that we know. So, for example, every time you breathe in, the spine has an echo of the S shape in it. A lengthening, a breastbone going forward and a tail going slightly back. You're not actually moving, but it feels like that. And as you breathe out, a C shape, the tail rolls back in, the head rolls back down. And so like this, we can breathe a few breaths, S to C. And then you can add a bit of eye tracking to this. So as you do your S, with your eyes closed and pretending that you're looking at a clock, look up to 12. And as you breathe out, look out to 6. So just following that 12 to 6 for a few breaths. Now at this point you might find that your stretch is loosened a little bit and you want to adjust a little bit the body so you've got the stretch back. And we can start to think about how relaxed are our legs. Maybe we can soften the toes. Maybe we can imagine that we're doing tick-tock in our heads. Just for a few little bits. Tick. Toes in, tock, release. Tick, toes in, tock, release. Just keep going like that for a moment. You might find that there's a slight little movement in your legs, but you can't help it, and that's okay. And then, of course, there comes a point where you want to stop and you just let the legs relax. Letting the bottom sink into the floor. We've got the base of relaxation in the lower body. And we can come back to the breath. How is the breath affecting our stretch now? Do we need to adjust a little bit and get a stronger stretch? S to C is still there. Eye tracking can still be there if you want it. Relaxing legs, S to C. And finally, what's quite nice to do before you come out is to really investigate the stretch now. Like, where is the point of origin of the stretch? What is that sensation? Is it heat? Is it cold? Is it dense? Is it light? Is it flowing? And if so, where is it flowing to? Now, all you need to remember with Yin Yoga is that when you come out, you have to do it really slowly and carefully. So bring the hands either side of you and push the floor a little bit away from you so that you can come out of this stretch with as minimum amount of effort as possible. And just uncurling back onto the sit bones. Let the legs relax a bit. Take a breath. And just notice how fully embodied we are after paying all that attention to it. Lovely. Okay, we're going to come into a little bit of a hip stretch next. So if there are issues with hips, doing hips in this passive style is really helpful. You can put cushions underneath your legs so that the legs can relax, because hips are all about letting go and relaxing, and if they're painful, you're not going to do that. So having support is important. Okay, so before we come into the big stretch, let's just think about letting go of the legs. What does that feel like when we let go of the legs? It feels, to me, it feels a bit like the feet are sinking in towards each other. You can also do a little bit of lift and drop, letting go. And remembering what that letting go feels like so that we can really sink the sitting bones down, let the back of the neck relax even before we start the stretch. And then when we feel, okay, our legs are nice and relaxed, we can start to come forwards a little bit. Feel the stretch there. Stretch as much as you can feel comfortably. Tuck the chin in. We need to go back to relaxing the legs. Can we feel them sink into each other? We feel that letting go, that butterfly drop. And then we can bring our attention to the breath. How does our breath affect the stretch? If I send the breath down into the stretch, what happens? Calmly observing. And then we've got S to C happening in the spine. What happens when you're in S shape, tail slightly up, extension, you're not moving, it just feels that way. How does that affect the stretch? And then how does the C shape affect the stretch? Again, you can come back to eye tracking. Eye tracking is really good, especially up and down if you're feeling a little bit not yourself. So stressed that you kind of lost sight of yourself. So a little bit eye tracking helpful, looking up at 12. Keep the head still, it's just the eyes. Feet still sinking into each other, hips still dropping. Looking at the stretch, where is the point of origin? Where is the tightness? Where is it being held? Where can you let it go? How far does it extend? Is it dense? Is it light? Is it hot? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it vibrating? Yes, with calm equanimity, just observing whatever is there. Now again, to come out of this, it's quite useful to use the hands. Just push the floor away from you. So you're using as little lower back and muscles as possible. Once you're upright, you want to use your own hands to close the legs up. So again, you're not using any muscles. And then you can stretch out the legs. Oh. See how that feels. So these long stretches, you do really notice it. You can do a side bend. So legs out to the side. One leg straight and one leg bent. So when people ask me, you know, what yoga poses can I do at home? And I always say, just remember there's 5 directions that you want to stretch your spine. Forward, backward, sideward, twist, and inversion. And if you just do one of each, your spine will be happy. Now, this one is a really good one for the psoas muscle. So I've got my hand here at the top of my thigh, where we were pressuring earlier. And I've got my other hand on the floor next to me, and I'm just going to bend the elbow down until I get a stretch there in that lower back psoas region. And then I'm going to sort of continue to go down until I can feel the stretch coming up into the rib cage and possibly a little bit into the neck. And breathe. Relax your leg. Now, of course, again, if we were in a yin yoga studio, we'd probably have a block and we'd be putting our elbow on the block so we don't have to sort of hold this quite awkward position with our arm. So we probably won't do this one quite as long as the others. But some quite fun things to do here is to relax the legs. Again, to check in with your S to C breath. How is that affecting the pose? You can then start to move the head around. So if you look down, you get one stretch in the neck. How does that join up with the stretch in the hip and the back? Come back to the center. How does that feel? And then looking up. How does that stretch your neck? How does that affect the stretch on the floor? And then you might sort of choose which of those 3 positions you actually felt the most stretch in. Now, if you are quite flexible, you might be able to get the elbow onto the ground without lifting the hip off. Now, even I can't do that. The hip does come off. And it's just lengthening. How does that lengthening feel? What kind of sensation is it? And usually with yin yoga, when you come out, you can really feel the imbalance in the body. It's quite noticeable. So again, use as little muscular as you can. Just use your hand as you come up. Again, it's up to you when you come up. You can just swap sides at any point. Just a little, if any of you have got a little yoga swing, you can do this by putting your hand into one of the handles of the yoga swing and have the arm up here for quite a while. But obviously, because we don't have one here right seconds, I'm not using the arm bit, but it's quite nice for the upper body, this one. So we're going to push down on that down on that thigh, bending the elbows. We go sideways, sideways, side, finding the stretch. Breathing that S to C breath. relaxing. So you might think about TikTok a little bit here. Changing the position of your head. Just check what kind of a neck stretch are you after. S to C with every breath. It's really feeling into the sensation, really getting into the body. Noticing how it feels, where it goes to, what kind of sensation it is. And of course, before you come out, you can bring the arm across. I did forget to say that last time, but it is possible just to have a little last few moments with the arm in position. Slightly reaching, 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 relaxing that hip down still. And my hand here has landed on my bench, which is quite good actually. It means I rest it a little bit there. Now to come out, release your hand first and then use the hand on the floor to push yourself up. And there we are, back in the center. Like not quite the same on each side because one is more recently freshly stretched than the other, so we can notice that. You know, that we have stretched both sides, but one is more fresh than the other. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Okay, so for the next few stretches, we're going to lie down. I'm going to do them on the floor with a bit of support. I'm just going to recommend after that, we're going to go into the final bit, which is where we're going to look at rocking on its own as an independent practice too. But you might not want to get up. So I'm just saying, make sure you've got your warm stuff next to you so that you don't have to move very far. If you bring it now, you'll be thankful later. And then you can just grab it and cover yourself because you're really not going to want to move. After all this sort of relaxing stuff we've done, we're going to be ready for a really good relaxation at the end. So we're going to start with a floor twist. Now, twists on the floor I find are the ones that I can hold for longest, which is why I've chosen to do it this way. We're going to do a slightly different one though than we normally do. So we're out in a T shape here, and we've got one leg straight and one leg bent. And then this foot that's on the floor here is going to push on the ground and lift the pelvis slightly off the floor so that I can roll over a little bit onto that straight leg. And once I've got that roll, I can either keep my foot pushing there, but that's quite a lot of effort, or I can bring it over the leg and let the gravitational pull of that weight roll me over. So you might need to adjust a little bit more, depends on your flexibility. The shoulder will be wanting to come with you. You can see that my shoulder's wanting to lift off the floor. But what I'm going to do instead of sort of pushing or pulling, I'm just going to lie here and let gravity do the job. So every out breath, feeling the weight of the shoulder sinking down, feeling the weight of the pelvis on the mat. And of course, I'm going to turn my head to face away from my knees if I want to have a bit of a neck stretch too. And if the stretch isn't quite enough for you, you can bring the hand to the top of that knee, the side of the knee, and just encourage it a little bit further. And once I've got the position I want and I can feel the stretch, I'm going to start by relaxing my legs. So soften the toes. Feel the weight of your legs. Let go of the tail. Don't hold it anymore. An S to C breath. Every time you breathe in, slight S shape. It's always there. But of course now we're also twisting, which means there's a bit of left to right going on. So you can start to scan your eyes across that clock. Now, depending on which way you've decided to go, you're either looking from 3 to 6, 3 to 6, or from 6 to 3. But just track with your eyes closed, just for a moment, just track the eyes. Nice and rhythmically between those 2 points. Finishing with looking at your shoulder, the direction that you're looking at that shoulder. Keeping the eyes there as they relax, breathing the S to C in. Relaxing the legs, the jaw, awareness in the hands. Again, as before, when you've been in something for a long time, just reminding you, because it's particularly important for the twist, you want to move really slowly to come out. And looking at perhaps where that sensation is in the back, down the leg and the shoulder, how gravity has helped you to release. And then we can let go a little bit of that. And just gently roll, bring the foot back over the other side so that you can then press on it to lift the pelvis off the ground and center it on the floor. Center your head and you'll see it feels very odd, very lopsided. A bit like you're rolling, about to roll down a hill. So we definitely need to do the other side. This is why, when you're doing these sorts of stretches, you need to turn the phone off. Don't answer the door, because if you get up, you'll feel a bit strange. Okay, so again, we're using that foot to lift the pelvis and roll over, bringing the gravitational weight of the leg, looking in the opposite direction, letting gravity do the job. Thinking about releasing in the legs, deciding whether you want the hand there on the knee or not. Once the toes are relaxed, the legs, the tail is let go of. See if you can find the S to C of the breath for a moment. And we're just going to do a bit of eye tracking. So looking down towards the shoulder, be it 3 or 6, whatever you decide you're on. Just track across the clock a few times. When the eyes get tired, keep looking towards the shoulder. For me, it's 3 o'clock. Keep the eyes there, relax them, breathe. You're feeling into the sensations in the body. What can you feel? Where does it extend from? Where does it release? How has gravity helped you? kind of sensation is it? Is it dense? Is it light? Is it flowing? Is it stuck? Just breathing into it for as long as you like. Now, at any point, as you know, you need to listen to your own body. When you do decide to come out, really slowly use the foot to support the movement. So you can do as less as you can with the body. When you come back to being straight, you might feel the need to bring the knees in to balance out all of that work. Just have a little moment there to squeeze the knees and relax. And then we're going to do our final stretch before we do some rocking, which will be our fish pose. Now, when I do a yin style fish pose, I do use my yoga wheel. I've just got it here in case we've not seen one before. So it's kind of sticky, mat-like along here, nice and padded and soft, and then quite strong. I've seen that you can also use those massage rollers, but the foam rollers, not the hard ones. I can show you actually both ways because I've got one of those too. I'll just get it. So this is a foam roller. You can get them in TK Maxx for like a £5, but it's got hard ends. I don't know if you can see. It's got a hard lip, and that's what makes these not that good to use, because that will dig into your back. Okay, so just quick demonstration, just in case you get inspired for Christmas. Always good to get these things. So with the foam roller, with a soft end, you would stick it right into your back there, and then you would roll over. I'm just going to shift that. And there's your fish. It's quite nice. It's a bit of an easier fish than with the yoga wheel. So the yoga wheel is a bit bigger. Yeah, so when you lie over it, you're going to lift up. And it's fish for the whole back. Now the whole point of either of these is that you can do a fish for a bit longer without having to use your elbows. Because when you're here on your elbows doing your fish, obviously the thing that's limiting you is your ability to hold yourself up. So anyway, we're going to do a fish in whichever way. If you happen to have props or not, doesn't really matter. I'm going to use my foam roller. And again, it's all about surrender. So we've got to surrender to gravity here. Let the bottom drop towards the floor. Let the legs relax. Breathe into the chest. That's lifting you every breath in F shape. And lengthening. Eyes tracking from 6 to 12 for a couple of times, and then landing on the 12. Feeling all the different sensations in the body. Where's the tightness? How does it feel? Where does it extend to? What can I release? Now, of course, if you're not on a tool, you're not going to be able to stay there for very long. But just if you do need to come out, just to remind you to push on your elbows. Try and keep the neck from doing anything. Push on the hands, get yourself upright, and as upright as you need to before you then roll back down onto the floor. Rolling the chin in. We get that, what I call that internal shower here. That's that feeling of being washed from the inside, which is that hormonal chemical change happening in the body. And again. So it probably took a little bit longer because we had to explain each stretch. If you were doing this at home, you'd probably spend 3 minutes in each stretch. We've had an inversion, 2 in 1, because the fish is actually an inversion. So that's 3 times 4, that's 12 minutes of stretching. And we've got time for 5 minutes.